Welcome back to another episode of Guess That Pokemon. How's it going, everybody? It's Mr. E, and today we'll be looking at the White Mage. So, White Mage. First I'd like to show off the Sacred Set. So the Sacred Set, if you have 3 pieces on, will give you the ability to have increased tick rate whenever you use Healing Zone. Well, what does that mean? What that means is when you use Healing Zone, you'll notice that your tick rate of your healing is way faster than it would be without the set on. If you take the set piece off, you'll see that the healing itself goes down quite a bit. But once you put the set back on, you'll see that your tick rate of healing goes quite up. The reason you might want to use the set is for one of the abilities, actually, that says the more healing you get, the more over damage you do. So the more over healing you do, the more damage you do on your next attack. So I went ahead and put on a thinking cap, and I figured, why not? We'll run with a mana shield. I put on an Ancient Aegis for this build. I put on a Satanic Eye, that way we can get a bunch of all resist. Monkey Skin Belt, mainly for the cooldown, but it has some really nice stats like damage reduction too. Siege Breakers, these are very nice. They have a chance to apply Elemental Break or Armor Break, so I went with it for the Elemental Break. Wizard Potion, mainly for the extra mana, that way we can stack Mana Shield a little bit higher. All 3 pieces of the Sacred Set. Grand Wizard's Robes. These are very nice early on, and they give you the ability to where if you drop below 40% mana, you'll instantly gain 40% of your maximum mana back. So this is really nice for a shield or a mana shield build. That way you can keep your mana shield up almost indefinitely. Very, very good for a beginner character. These are the talents I went ahead and went with. I went with Malediction. Why not? It increases damage. Benediction, it gives you, it's that one skill I told you that gives you more damage depending on how much overhealing you do. Flash Heal, just for all the extra healing damage. Healing Zone, that way we can do a bunch of healing ticks. And Mana Orb, that way we can do some extra damage. Went ahead and plugged in 0 talents. Even though I have 100 hero levels plugged in, I decided we're going to go with 0 hero levels this time, just because it'll be easier for a new player. Also, I'm not using any Merc. So let's see how this works in difficulty Hell 5. Keep in mind that my gear is 100% 10 out of 10, but it is all basically starter gear that you can get early on in any season, and it's fairly cheap. So you can literally take this build and plug in whatever you want as you go and improve on it. I'm just making this build specifically for a newer player and showing you what you can do with it. The damage that you see in this gameplay is actually, like I said, without any merc, so you're not getting any benefits from a mercenary, and there's no hero levels plugged in. So you can only see the damage go higher depending on whether or not you plug any of those in. And then you can also benefit from, like I said, improving your gear. This is still basically mostly starter gear besides the class set. So yeah, this is, as you can see, quite easy that I'm just running straight through Hell 5. I don't really have speed gear on. I don't really have high mana, high energy pieces of gear on. I just kind of threw on what I felt was simple to get. So I would say my only argument behind the Sacred Set is its overall single target damage. It's not really meant for doing a lot of single target damage to like bosses. It's mainly a support build, I would say. It has potential to do everything, and it's just a little bit slow. As far as gameplay goes, I have been able to solo a Wormhole 200 with this exact build, but it took me like 15 minutes because the boss in itself was like a 10-minute fight. It took forever, and he only had 1 billion HP, but it took forever. This setup in itself is super tanky though. The survivability rate is really high. Even with really low damage reduction and like not very high mana, with mana shield and all of the overhealing, you can basically tank almost anything to a degree. But yeah, the single target damage is lacking, and if you guys really wanted to work towards that and focus only on single target damage, you might have to rearrange some of the pieces of gear or rearrange some of the talents that I plugged in to work best for you. But overall, this is a very easy to build white mage setup that I think any new player could technically grab a hold of and start running with. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at the Zealot set and what it can do. So, the Zealot set, what its bonus does is it applies Curse up to 8 times and increases its overall AoE. This is actually really nice, but the problem I came to find is it's not something that does a lot of damage early on. You actually have to apply a lot of high-end gear to apply this curse stack to actually make a huge difference. So, as a new player, I decided let's go ahead and go with a more attack speed forward build, something that's focused more around APS or attacks per second. So, I went ahead and threw on a Zeus set. As you can see, it shoots out a bunch of lightning orbs that send out lightning beams off of it. This is very handy for a new player to help clear the zones. They also can travel through walls sometimes. Went ahead and put on a bunch of crit gear. This is all fairly easy to get at the beginning of a season as well. Ravenclaw, Commander's Sash, Blood Ward, Bottle of Sake, Lucky Loop. These are all fairly obtainable items that are fairly cheap. And yeah, besides that, I put on a mana shield from Thinking Cap, which is a rune word that you can, like I said, make. It's fairly cheap. No hero talents and no merc once again. This is the build I went with. I put 20 into Curse. I put 20 into Phantasm. That way we can get attack speed. I put 20 into Malediction. That way we can the curse enemies take increased damage. Went ahead and put some into Dark Oath. This is actually a really nice skill, and it's a skill that needs to be applied once when you go into a map. You don't want to spam it because it'll turn it on and off, so you need to focus to put that under a button that you only hit once. I also put 20 into Mana Orb because that's a lot of damage that we want to be able to do to a bunch of targets. Obviously, with this build, if you could find pieces that had APS roll like 0.50%, it would actually benefit you a lot more than any of the other rolls. But that's just asking a little bit much. Here's the relics I went ahead and threw on. You can choose to filter out what you want, maybe even put like Horned Mask or Mario Pipe or Token of Luck if you want, but I just went ahead and threw on some random stuff for the video. As you can see, I didn't plug in optimized gear for resistance. I just threw on random stuff, and if you wanted, you could just plug in runes into the slots to fill in that resist, or you could simply just replace Lucky Loop lose a little bit of damage and put a Satanic Eye on. That way you can fill in those all resists. First thing you want to do is toggle to put your mana shield on. This is something you would have done on the other white mage too, but I didn't show it. And then take it off once you have it turned on and replace that. Dark Oath I put under my number 1 key because I normally have everything bound to my right click, but you don't want to be able to spam it. You only want it turned on once. So hit your number 1 key, see if you tap it over and over, it turns it on and off, and this is not something that you want in your gameplay. You want to be able to have it on at all times, so you just want to trigger it once. So with this build, it actually does a little bit more damage than the Sacred setup, and the reason why is because it's focused a lot around crit rate. Crit rate can actually be stacked all the way to 100% on a build, which can actually take all classes up a notch in their damage. Since this is focused on attack speed and crit rate, it's going to have a little bit more of an advantage over the Sacred Set, and I would say between the two, this one's more of the offensive compared to the defensive. I'd say this one's more of I'm going to go out and start killing stuff, and the Sacred Set is more of I'm going to go out and start taking stuff and healing my team and keeping them alive. So they both have their own uses, and you can use it for whichever means of gameplay you would like. So first thing you'll notice when I'm running through Hell 5 is enemies are actually dying a lot quicker. One of the biggest reasons behind this isn't just crit rate and attack speed. The Zeus set in itself is actually really nice. Not only does it shoot out lightning bolts, but when you get within a certain range of a mob or a boss or just an enemy in general, you'll see a little proc shoot off of them, like a little lightning bolt proc. And if it does enough damage, it'll just insta-kill. So that's another thing that's actually really nice with the Zeus set, and that's why I decided to add it to this build. So the Zeus set is actually fairly common of a drop, so it shouldn't be too hard to come by. It's not like any of the other sets in the game, it's more of a starter set, but you'll see some people apply it into their end game builds because it just happens to be what they want to use. You should be able to find it quite early on in the season, and if you can, obviously you want to look for an APS version, unless maybe you're not going for attack speed and you want maybe crit or something, or all talents. I would focus probably on an APS roll though, if you can get it. And as you can see, even though I have not negative, but even though I have low resists on this setup, I was able to sit there and still tank all of the hits from Girag, no problem. And it's because of the mana shield and from the healing zone just being that good on the character. On top of that, some of the skills apply an overshield whenever you hit them, or whenever you hit an enemy, so that helps too. So here's something I found really strange, but I wanted to point out to everybody because it's really important. So if you're playing at like 120 hertz or 144 hertz, for some reason you can target an enemy with like mana orb or certain other skills like restless spirits, and it will always hit its target, like it won't stop. But if you go back down to 60 hertz or 30 hertz, which is what I'm guessing a majority of you guys are actually using, because not everybody has a really nice monitor or computer setup. Now watch what happens when I shoot it. So you're going to notice this probably right off the bat when you go to use this skill. If you're using 30 or 60 hertz, the mana orb is just going to hit and then continue to run. It won't stop on its target like it's meant to. You'll see that it'll stop on a multi-target, but on a single target it won't, which makes it really hard to use against bosses. I think this is something that should be actually looked into by the dev team, and I don't know why it's a thing. I guess it's been around for a while. I had no idea, but This is definitely something that I wanted to show you guys. If you guys had questions or doubts about it, now you know why. It's because of frames. You literally just aren't using high enough frame rate to be able to get the game to proc it, and I don't know why. That's just, yeah. Overall, I would say between the two sets, if you can get one or the other, I'd probably choose the Zealot set over the Sacred set. That's just my personal opinion. I like the offensive playstyle better than the defensive playstyle, but whichever one you can get your hands on first, I would definitely go with that. I would say that the Sacred set probably drops more commonly than the Zealot set. Overall, they're very good choices, and I feel that everyone has their own playstyle, so choose the playstyle that works best for you. So I know that you guys have been waiting to see some type of really overpowered white mage build, and I think this is what you want. I was struggling to find something actually that was really decent, something that would be over the top, and I went ahead and decided to go online and look around to see what other people had put together. And believe it or not, this build right here was made none other by Xtran. Xtran put together the best build I could imagine possible, and I decided that I didn't want to try to make a rip-off version. I didn't want to offer something that was worse than what was possibly out there. So I went ahead and contacted him and I said, hey, do you mind if I share this in my video and throw your name out there? And he's like, no, go ahead. That sounds fine. Sounds perfect. So this is what the build is. Technically, it's a bunch of overpowered pieces that give you a bunch of APS. So you roll APS on all the pieces. You stack as much crit rate as you can through runes, and after you hit the 100% crit rate, you throw dams in the rest. On top of that, I wanted to min-max this to the max that it can possibly go, so I put 115% into each piece. I went ahead and put 20 into Curse. I went ahead and put 20 into Phantasm for the attack speed. I went ahead and put 20 into Heavenly Fire. I went ahead and put 15 into Martyr just for the mob explosion damage, and then I put 20 into Malediction. This build is completely passive for the most part. You don't use almost any of the skills. You could technically apply Healing Zone and just spam that the whole time if you want, but I didn't plug that in. I did change a little bit with the skills and the actual hero levels a teeny bit compared to what Xtran uses, but it's really opinionated. I just went ahead and plugged in more into the fire damage itself, mainly because of the fire burn ability that I plugged in. And then since we're going for complete attack speed, I went ahead and threw in Meteor instead of putting in Divine Shield. If you need to be tankier, obviously Divine Shield would probably be a better choice. So with this build, you can see it's topping out like 60 to 70 billion single target damage, which is ridiculously nuts. Even for any class. This is the relics I went ahead and threw together. They could be changed if you want. The skills that I have on my hotbar, I'm actually not even using. I'm only using left click, not even using any of my skills. I'm using Halgar's for the Mortal Reminder, which is damage over time, and that applies to everything very well. This build, it's literally just a flamethrower. It's that fast. It's crazy. It just really is. I'm gonna be honest too. This build is not something that you should seek to try to build. unless you're willing to sit there and farm the auction house and farm the Discord to try to find like every single piece in one season. This is not something you're going to see everybody being able to accomplish. It's very hard to put together this exact setup with everything rolled perfectly, and also getting it all to 115% and having your hero levels at 100. It's just not realistic. But for the sake of making an OP build, I wanted to show you guys what the best of the best can actually achieve. So I also found another problem with frames per second. If with this build, you're hitting with a ridiculous amount of attack speed. You're hitting with, well, the way I have it set up, I'm hitting for 65 attacks per second. Well, I realized that if you're not playing on a 120 to 144 hertz monitor setup, you'll actually get cut off in the middle of attacking if you go over 62 attacks per second. All I needed to do in order to fix this was to take some of the attack speed off, and then it would instantly go back to normal. But then again, you look at somebody who's using a really nice computer setup, and they don't have to change that. They can go as high as they possibly want on attack speed, which is kind of unfair. It basically is just letting them pay to win, you know what I mean? As long as you have the money to go up and beyond in your settings, you're allowed to benefit in the gameplay and get way more damage than anyone else. It doesn't sound right, and I don't know how they can fix it, but the difference between me using 120 hertz and me using 60 hertz is somewhere between 10 to 20 billion damage on the dummy. Not only that, if I am trying to use the same exact setup in 60 hertz, my damage drops off ridiculously because of the amount of attacks that stop applying. So I'll go to shoot, it'll stop, and then it'll shoot at random, and then it'll stop. So this is not optimized around somebody who's using 60 hertz or lower. So what did I put on my Merc? I went ahead and put True Aim, and I rolled Flash Fire on it, and then I threw a Shroud of Elements on him. So he's applying Elemental Break, and he's applying Flash Fire to me. That way I get a bonus to attack speed. I went ahead and went with that setup because True Aim, the rune word that you can make, which is actually fairly easy to make, comes with marked target already, and your Merc can apply marked target to the enemy, which will apply to you. So if you can roll another angelic ability like Flash Fire to your Merc, you'll basically be getting 2 abilities for 1, and then you can roll whatever ability on yourself as you want. So I went ahead and rolled Pentaslash on my weapon. I tested it comparably to a lot of other weapon types. I actually thought Weapon Throw would be the best. It was not. I tried Far Shot. It was not. I tried Weapon Sweep. It was not. I tried a bunch of different setups. I even tried putting Flash Fire and Mortal Reminder and Mark Target, but none of that actually benefited me like this setup. So overall, you want the most OP setup possible for White Mage for Season 14. Keep in mind, this might change next season, but for Season 14, I can't see anything being higher damage than this. And if you guys want or have any questions about it, I can try to answer it, but you can also ask Xtran, because he's the one that put this build together. So thank you, Xtran, for making an OP build, and thank you guys for checking out this White Mage video. For all you that were looking for a White Mage build or a White Mage guide, I hope this helped. If you guys like what you saw, please hit the subscription button. It'll help me a lot. Comment below if you guys have any questions or concerns. And if you guys want to check me out live, I'll be live Monday through Fridays on Twitch. Check the description below. Thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.